Hello, my name is Vang, and I am a proud Hmong American. I'm celebrating Asian Pacific Heritage Month this May with a retelling of a traditional Hmong folk tale that is 1,000 years old. I've reimagined it for Minnesota during the COVID pandemic. I hope you enjoy. If you think this story is spooky, please like this video or leave me a comment below. This story isn't really a spooky story, nor is it a ghost story, or a haunting story, or a haunted house story. This is actually a story of true love. Do you believe in true love? Do you believe that true love can last even after death? Well, let's find out together. My story begins in 1975, right at the end of the secret war in Laos. Our story begins when Tu first sees Mai at the Hmong New Year celebration and Samnua. The moment Tu saw Mai, he was in love. The back of his neck felt hot and moist when he looked at her. She had almond black eyes, dark as midnight, and her hair was dark and long like the Mekong River. The locks of hair that flowed down her back reminded him of the turbulent waves of the Mekong River. He wanted to swim in her hair and get lost in its fragrance. Her lips were red and luscious like the ripest watermelon, and in her lips he wanted to suck and to taste. He loved Mai because he loved the way she looked, and he felt that she was beautiful enough to be his wife. Mai also loved Tu, but for many different reasons. At the age of 19, Tu already had become a colonel in the secret war army. It was the army that was supported and funded by the US CIA. It was the secret army that was fighting the Viet Congs and the Pathet Laos along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And Tu had a big role to play in that war. He joined the secret war when he was just 14 years old. He joined with 6 other village boys when the CIA came to recruit them after all the men had already left the year earlier and died. The CIA had come back to recruit now the boys. And of the 6 village boys that left with Tu that day, 5 years later, all of them would be dead except for Tu. So Tu felt that he was a lucky man. Somebody was watching out for him. Maybe it was the ancestors, maybe it was God, or maybe it was just nature. But he knew that he was special, and he would not accept any woman in his life that was not beautiful or special. And so when Tu saw Mai at the Hmong New Year in the village of Samnua, he knew that Mai had a special quality just like him. He went to talk to her, and he asked her to sing him a kutia, a beautiful rhyme poem that has rhythm and melody and sweetness all rolling out of someone's mouth. And she could sing the most beautiful kutia. That day at the Hmong New Year, Tu promised Mai that he would come back for her at the end of the war and that he would love her forever. She was nervous. She was only 16 years old. And all this talk about true love, promises, she had never heard words like that before. But she knew how she felt. And in her heart, she felt as if Her whole body was tingling and exploding when she looked at him. So she agreed to his promises. She said, "Yes, I will wait for you until the end of the secret war, until we can be together. Yes, I will love you until the day I die." Tu told her that he didn't want her to love him until the day she died. He wanted her to love him even after death. And that day she said, "Yes, yes, Tu. I will wait for you until the end of the secret war, and I will love you even after death." And they made a promise to each other. He gave her his handkerchief, the handkerchief on his uniform that was in his pocket, his front right pocket, and he handed it to her, and he said, "As long as you have this handkerchief, you have my heart and spirit." So he said goodbye to her that day. He wrote to her every week, telling her about his adventures in the war. He wrote to her for 6 months, and she wrote back to him for 6 months, until one day the letters stopped. He continued to write to her week after week, but there was no reply from Mai. He was angry. He was confused. She had promised him her everlasting love. None of that made sense until one day he overheard his commanders talking. You see, Viet Cong soldiers had come through Mai's village. And in fact, Viet Cong soldiers had killed everybody in the village. Tu was upset and he was angry. How could that be? How can Mai be lost to him? He couldn't believe it. So he asked to leave and said to his superiors, "My mother is sick. I have to go and visit her." But instead of heading back to his village to make sure that his mother was okay, he headed straight to Mai's village in the Saymoukda area. You see, his mother was not sick. He just needed to know if the rumors were true. Had the Viet Congs killed everybody in Mai's village? Was Mai lost to him forever? So he walked for 3 days, and as he approached Mai's village, he noticed that there was no sound, no noise. The only thing he heard was the blowing in the wind, and the only thing he felt was emptiness inside his heart. He walked around the village. The chickens were gone, the animals had disappeared, and there was no human. But then he heard the sound. It was the sound of Mai's voice. "Tu, tu, tu, come here." It was her sweet voice, the same voice that he had heard her sing the beautiful melody of the kutia. He followed her sweet voice straight to her bamboo and banana leaf hut. The door was ready opened. He peeked inside, and in the middle of the room was Mai. But she didn't look like herself. Her long, beautiful black hair was dirty and even ashen. It was no longer black and gray, but gray. And as he looked closer at her, clumps of her hair, her long, luscious hair like the Mekong River, had fallen beside her. "My love, come in," she asked him. He wasn't sure what to do. His mind told him to run, but his heart, his heart, who had made those sweet promises to Mai, his heart said, "Go on, your love is waiting for you." So Tu went in to the hut, and as he sat down next to Mai, She covered her face with her hand, and he said, "Sweet Mai, why are you covering your face with your hand? I can't see your luscious watermelon lips." She did not answer him. She said, "Do you think I'm beautiful? Do you think I am still beautiful?" Tu answered, "Of course, you are the most beautiful Hmong girl that I've ever seen. Let me see your face." She said, "No, you can't see my face. You can't." And he said, "Why?" And she just looked down. He noticed then, as he scanned the hut, that it was all barren. There was nobody in the hut. In fact, he now realized that there was nobody in the village. It was as if everybody in the village had left in a hurry, or the village had been abandoned for months. He just felt alarmed. He felt scared all of a sudden. And so, in his fear, he all of a sudden pulled Mai's hand back from her face. And what he saw frightened him. Her whole face in the lower area had been cut open, as though somebody had taken a knife and cut her whole lower face. There was a line of cut flesh all the way from this cheek to this cheek. Her tongue hung out. It rolled out of her. And her flesh from here down was rotten, the rotten flesh of a corpse. She looked at him and said, "Do you think I am beautiful?" He screamed, "Ah!" And he said, "I have to go." And she said, "Why do you scream at me? Do you don't think I'm beautiful?" And so he said, "No, you're beautiful. You're absolutely beautiful. I just have to go and pee outside. I really do." And she said, "Well, if you really need to pee, then take my sash. Take my sash." See, Hmong women wear a sash with their traditional clothes. They tie it around their waist to keep their pants or their skirt up. And so she said, "Tie your sash, my sash to you. Tie it around your waist. And when you go outside, I will pull the sash, and I'll know that you are outside close to me, peeing." He said, "Yes, Mai, I will do that." And so he took the sash, the red sash, and he tied it around himself. And he went outside, and he took off the sash, and he wrapped it around a small tree. And he could feel Mai pulling it and saying, "Hurry up, come back to me, my love. If you think I am beautiful, come back to me." He said, "Don't worry, my love, I will. I'm just peeing." And with that, he ran. He ran as fast as the wind. He ran straight out of the village, right into the jungle. He ran through valleys and mountains. He ran. And as he ran, he never looked back, but he could hear her voice saying, "My darling, my sweetheart, wait for me. You promise we be together forever. Am I not beautiful to you anymore? Am I not beautiful?" Tu ran until he got to the nearest village, and he screamed, "There's a ghost chasing after me, a ghost. Please, please help me, someone help me." There was a powerful shaman who lived in the village, and the shaman said, "My boy, come quickly into my hut." And the shaman cast a spell that protected Tu. This spell made Tu invisible to Mai. So even though Mai's ghost went to that village, and she followed and she sniffed and she followed his scent all the way to the village, he was invisible to her. And Mai cried, she cried, because the Pathat Laos and Viet Congs had come to her village. They had raped her, and when she struggled against them, because she was the most beautiful girl, they decided to take a knife and cut her face so that she would no longer be beautiful. Some of the villagers escaped, and others, like Mai and her parents, didn't. Mai bled to death. She was killed, but her love for Tu did not die. She remembered the promise, so she vowed to always follow his scent and find him. Years later, Tu's scent brought Mai to Minnesota. This was 40 years later. It was 2020. And Mai had picked up Tu's scent in Minnesota, in St. Paul on the east side. She knew that he was near, but she couldn't see him. One day, she felt him, followed his scent. She followed his scent all the way to the confluence of the St. Croix and Mississippi River, to a small park called St. Douglas Point. This is a place where dragons live. They say that a place where two rivers meet is where dragons sleep. And it was also a place where you could find great fishing. Mai followed a scent, and she saw a young man. He looked like Tu, but different. He didn't quite have Tu's charisma or bravado, but he had Tu's eyes and Tu's laughter. She knew that she needed to hide her face from him. Because her eyes and the bridge of her nose was still beautiful, it was only this part that was a corpse. So she picked up a surgical mask and put it around herself. She had noticed that all around her, people were wearing surgical masks, and there were some unfortunate people who were dying and becoming the undead spirit like her. She could see them coughing, hacking, not being able to breathe, trying to gasp for the last breath before they joined her in the undead, souls that had nowhere to go, souls who had died a death that no one really understood or sometimes even cared for. That particular night, she saw a young man fishing at St. Douglas Point Park. He was alone. He wasn't supposed to be fishing there. They had closed the park. So, with her surgical mask covering her, she went to talk to him. She said, "Hi, my name is Mai." And when she looked in his eyes, she realized that he was the son of Tu. He was Tu, and Tu's spirit, but different, because he was really Tu's son. And she knew that she needed to have him. And she said, "Hello, my name is Mai." This young man said, "Oh, I'm Tu." She said, "Your name is Tu also?" And he said, "Yes, my father's name was Tu, and he called me Tu. What are you doing out here? There's no one here fishing except for me. And it's kind of late. It's actually getting really dark." She said, "What time is it?" He answered her, "Well, it's close to midnight, and even I'm actually not supposed to be out here because of the COVID-19 pandemic. They've closed this park. I'm actually, parked down the road a bit, and I walked down, to do my fishing because I love fishing." and he looked at her, and she had spectacular almond eyes. Her face was dewy and creamy, and she had long, beautiful black hair that reminded him of the Mississippi River. He wanted to know her more, and she said, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And he said, "Well, yeah, you're gorgeous." And she said, "Do you really think I'm pretty?" And he said, "Of course." And so she slowly unveiled herself, and he saw her rotting flesh. He saw the line of flesh that had been carved in her face that could never heal. He screamed, frightened by what was in front of him. And she jumped on him and covered him and enveloped him in her death. And he was absorbed into her. She felt full, and she felt loved, and she felt that finally she was beautiful and she could rest, because she had promised too that she would love him after death, and two had promised her that too. And if she couldn't have two, then she was happy to settle for her son. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I really enjoyed telling you all this wonderful story that is about 1,000 years old, that was reimagined for today. My name is Vang. Please like this video. Leave me a message if you like it. And again, thank you to the Eastside Freedom Library.
Thank you for visiting our video. I'm Beth Cleary.
I'm Peter Ratcliffe, and this is Orso, the library dog.
We are the co-founders and co-executive directors of the Eastside Freedom Library in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Our mission is to inspire solidarity, work for justice, and advocate for equity for all. If you enjoy our programming and want to support our work, please visit our website, eastsidefreedomlibrary.org.